The video quality is grainy, the lighting inside the gym is harsh, and the sound of leather pounding leather echoes off the concrete walls like gunshots in an alleyway. But nobody in combat sports gives a damn about production value when the two guys standing in the center of that ring are Terence Bud Crawford and Shakur Stevenson. For years, boxing fans were told a very specific story about these two. We were told they were brothers. We were told Bud was the wise, ruthless big homie from Omaha who took the young Olympic prodigy from Newark under his wing, showing him the dark arts of the ring, schooling him on how to switch stances, manipulate range, and mentally break another human being. We saw them side by side in training camps, laughing at press conferences, celebrating each other's championship belts, and hyping each other up as the ultimate 1-2 punch in modern boxing. Then, raw footage dropped online, and the entire narrative melted in seconds. This wasn't a friendly, polished promotional clip put out by a network to sell pay-per-views. This was raw, unfiltered, behind closed doors gym footage where the polite front completely vanished. You could see the subtle shift in real time, the light touch sparring suddenly evaporated. The jab stopped being polite feelers and started snapping heads back. The defense stopped being an exercise in technical drill work and became a high-stakes chess match played with bad intent. And when the bell rang to end the round, neither man walked back to his corner. They stepped right into each other's faces, forehead to forehead, trading sharp, stingingly personal trash talk that had every trainer, fighter, and spectator in that gym freezing in dead silence. The tension wasn't performative. You can't fake the body language of two hyper-competitive, undefeated, cold-blooded ring assassins who both genuinely believe they are the smartest, baddest man on the planet. The gym went quiet because everyone in that room realized the same thing at the exact same moment: the little brother isn't acting like a student anymore, and the big brother sure as hell isn't going to let anyone disrespect his crown. To understand why this footage went viral across every corner of the boxing world within hours of hitting the internet, you have to look past the surface noise and analyze what was actually happening inside that ring. Boxing is a sport built on perception, but gym work is where reality lives. Publicly, fighters put on a front for the cameras, sponsors, and promoters. But inside a closed gym, when the doors are locked, the sweat is pouring, and the gloves are laced up, there is nowhere to hide. Every punch thrown carries the weight of a fighter's ego, pride, and standing in the gym hierarchy. When the clip begins, you immediately notice the atmosphere. This isn't the circus-like environment of an open media workout where fighters throw light combinations for the press and flash million-dollar smiles. This is the grind. The air inside the gym looks thick, heavy with the smell of sweat, leather, and deep conditioning. The canvas is worn, scuffed by thousands of hours of footwork, and the only soundtrack is the rhythm of breathing, the slap of gloves, and the low, intense mutterings from the trainer standing near the apron. At first glance, it looks like high-level technical work. Both Crawford and Stevenson move with a rare fluidity that only elite, generational talents possess. They understand ring geometry on a level that few fighters in history ever reach. Watch how Shakur operates early in the sequence. He uses his trademark distance management, sitting right on the absolute edge of Crawford's range. His lead hand is constantly probing, flickering out like a snake tongue, measuring the distance down to the millimeter. He uses subtle upper body twitches to feint Crawford's guard, trying to force Bud to commit to a lead shot so he can step back that fraction of an inch and deliver his signature counter left hand. It is pure, refined defensive mastery, the kind of boxing that has made Shakur virtually untouched throughout his professional career. But Terence Crawford isn't just another opponent on Shakur's resume. He is a master strategist who reads human body language better than almost anyone who has ever worn gloves. Crawford doesn't bite on the early feints. Instead, he shifts his weight onto his back foot, lowering his center of gravity, his eyes locked onto Shakur's chest. But operates with a terrifying calm. When Shakur steps in to land a quick jab to the body, Crawford doesn't step back, he slides laterally, cutting off the ring angle and smothering Shakur's exit lane. That is where the tempers begin to flare. For Shakur, his entire style relies on control. He wants to dictate the pace, control the distance, and make his opponent feel like they are punching at a shadow. But Crawford refuses to let him breathe. Bud uses his length, his upper body strength, and his switch-hitting ability to constantly throw off Shakur's timing. In one particular sequence caught on camera, Shakur tries to step around Crawford after throwing a quick jab-cross combination. In standard sparring, Crawford would let him reset. Instead, Crawford uses a subtle frame with his forearm, nudging Shakur off balance, stepping inside, and digging a heavy, short hook into the body that makes an audible thud echo through the room. That shot changed the entire mood of the gym. You can literally see the exact second the energy shifted. Shakur's eyes widened, his posture stiffened, and instead of resetting to the center of the ring, he immediately fired back with a sharp, three-punch combination aimed right through Crawford's guard. The punches weren't light touches meant to show points, they had real speed, real leverage, and real bad intent behind them. Crawford ducked under the final hook, rolled off the shoulder, and came back with an uppercut that forced Shakur to clinch. When the two tied up, the sparring officially turned into a dogfight. Crawford leaned his full weight onto Shakur, driving him toward the ropes, whispering something directly into his ear. Whatever Bud said, it struck a nerve. Shakur shucked Crawford off, raised his guard high, and stood his ground right in the pocket, an area where Shakur rarely stays unless he feels he has a point to prove. For 30 breathless seconds, two of the most technically gifted, untouchable defensive geniuses in modern boxing abandoned their long-range chess game and traded heavy blows at point-blank range. The bell rang to signal the end of the round, but neither man turned toward his corner. They stood chest to chest, breathing heavily, their faces inches apart. Crawford was talking trash with that cold, menacing Omaha smirk on his face, the look he gives opponents right before he finishes them. Shakur was barking right back, waving his glove in Crawford's face, refusing to back down, refusing to concede a single inch of psychological territory. Trainers rushed in to step between them, taking hold of their arms, trying to calm the atmosphere down before a gym session turned into an unsanctioned, full-blown war. When that footage hit social media, the boxing world erupted. Fans scrambled to analyze every single frame. Was this just two hyper-competitive brothers pushing each other to the limit in camp? Or was this the moment where the balance of power inside the camp began to fracture? To truly understand why this interaction was so explosive, you have to look at the deep, complex history between these two fighters. It's a history built on mentorship, shared glory, and an inevitable collision of two massive egos. To appreciate the raw intensity of that viral moment, you have to wind the clock back and look at how the bond between Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson was formed in the first place. This was never a forced, fake friendship designed for social media algorithms. It was an authentic mentorship forged in the brutal grind of world-class boxing gyms, overseen by head coach Brian Bomack McIntyre and the rest of the Team Crawford ecosystem. When Shakur Stevenson first broke onto the national radar as a teenager, he was touted as a once-in-a-generation talent. He took the 2016 Rio Olympics by storm, capturing a silver medal and displaying a level of defensive purity and ring generalship that had veteran boxing scouts comparing him to a young Floyd Mayweather Jr. But making the transition from the amateur ranks to the professional prize ring is a treacherous road. The pros require more than just quick feet and a sharp jab. It demands physical durability, psychological warfare, inside fighting craft, and the ability to hurt grown men who are trying to tear your head off. Enter Terence Bud Crawford. At that time, Crawford was already building his reputation as the most dangerous man in boxing. Hailing from the tough streets of Omaha, Nebraska, Crawford wasn't just a skilled boxer, he was a mean, ruthless fighter who possessed a sadistic streak in the ring. While other top fighters relied solely on speed or athleticism, Crawford was a complete stylistic chameleon. He could box off the back foot, pressure you as a southpaw, chop you down from orthodox, or turn a fight into a bloody brawl inside the pocket. Most importantly, Crawford possessed an untouchable killer instinct. When Bud smelled blood in the ring, the fight was essentially over. Crawford saw something special in the young kid from Newark. He recognized Shakur's natural brilliance, the lightning-fast reflexes, the pristine footwork, the uncanny vision, but he also knew that talent alone wasn't enough to reach the absolute summit of professional boxing. Crawford took Shakur under his wing, inviting him into his training camps, giving him access to his inner circle, and treating him like a younger brother. For years, Shakur was a constant fixture in Crawford's camps. He soaked up knowledge like a sponge. Watch early footage of Shakur's professional fights, and you can see Crawford's subtle influence everywhere. Bud taught Shakur how to switch stances seamlessly without compromising his balance. He showed him how to use subtle shoulder bumps and forearm frames to create space inside the clinch. He taught him how to read an opponent's eyes, how to manipulate their rhythm, and how to stay completely relaxed under intense physical pressure. More than the physical techniques, Crawford gave Shakur the ultimate masterclass in ring mentality. Crawford taught him that defense isn't about running or hiding, it is about weaponizing distance. It is about making your opponent throw punches into empty air until they become frustrated, exhausted, and desperate, and then punishing them for every single mistake. The relationship was mutually beneficial. For Crawford, having a lightning-quick, defensively brilliant sparring partner like Shakur meant he was sharp for his own world title defenses. Shakur forced Crawford to be precise. You couldn't throw lazy punches against Shakur because he would make you pay instantly. For Shakur, sparring Crawford was the ultimate baptism by fire. If you can survive in the ring against Terence Crawford, a man who walks around significantly heavier, punches with devastating power, and possesses one of the highest boxing IQs in modern history, then nobody in your own weight class will ever scare you. Publicly, the duo was inseparable. When Crawford fought Errol Spence Jr. in one of the most anticipated super fights of the century, Shakur was right there in his corner, cheering on every punch, celebrating Bud's historic victory as if it were his own. When Shakur was defending his titles against elite contenders at featherweight, super featherweight, and lightweight, Crawford was ringside, shouting instructions, acting as an advisor, mentor, and secondary trainer. They formed a brotherhood that seemed unbreakable. In an era where boxing is often defined by petty rivalries, ducking opponents, and toxic internet beefs, Crawford and Stevenson represented a rare, unified front, two undefeated, multi-division world champions pushing each other to greatness. But boxing is an inherently selfish sport. There can only be one alpha in the gym. There can only be one pound-for-pound king. And as Shakur Stevenson grew from a promising prospect into a dominant, world champion superstar, the dynamic between master and apprentice began to undergo a subtle, dangerous shift. In the fight game, time is the ultimate equalizer. Mentorships are beautiful while the prodigy is young, hungry, and eager to learn. But what happens when the student grows up? What happens when the kid who used to look up to you as an untouchable icon starts winning world titles in multiple weight divisions, dominating elite opposition, and hearing boxing Hall of Famers call him the best defensive boxer on the planet? That is the hidden psychological tension that has been quietly brewing beneath the surface of the Crawford-Stevenson relationship for the past couple of years. As Shakur Stevenson moved up through the weight classes, dominating at 126 pounds, unifying titles at 130, and capturing the WBC Lightweight World Championship at 135, his confidence transformed into absolute supreme arrogance. And rightfully so. Statistically, Shakur became almost impossible to hit. According to CompuBox metrics, opponents connect on less than 15% of their total punches against him, numbers that match or exceed prime Floyd Mayweather Jr. Shakur began to realize that nobody in his immediate weight range could touch him. He started carrying himself not as a student soaking up wisdom, but as an equal. An absolute master of the craft. Meanwhile, Terence Crawford was cementing his own legacy as a legendary figure. By obliterating Errol Spence Jr. to become the first male boxer in history to hold all four major belts in two different weight divisions, Crawford ascended to the absolute top of the sport. In his mind, he is the untouchable standard of modern boxing. He has been through the wars, conquered multiple divisions, knocked out virtually everyone put in front of him, and earned every single drop of respect through blood and dominance. When you put those two mindsets inside the same gym, the air changes. Think about the psychological mechanics at play during a high-level sparring session between two fighters of this caliber. For Crawford, every time he steps into the ring with Shakur, he isn't just training, he is defending his position as the big dog. He cannot allow Shakur to get the better of him, even in a practice session. If Crawford lets Shakur pick him apart, move around him, and talk trash, it chips away at the psychological aura he has built over a decade of dominance. But has to remind Shakur, physically and mentally, why he is the master and Shakur is the student. For Shakur, the motivation is completely different, but equally intense. Every young, elite fighter secretly wants to prove they can handle the man who trained them. Shakur respects Crawford immensely, but inside that ring, respect turns into competition. Shakur wants to prove that his speed, his defensive mastery, and his razor-sharp instincts can solve the ultimate puzzle in boxing, Terence Crawford. He wants to show Bud that he isn't just the young kid learning the ropes anymore, he is a full-grown shark swimming in the exact same deep waters. This is where the subtle friction in the viral video stems from. In that leaked clip, you aren't seeing two guys who hate each other. You are seeing two sociopathically competitive athletes reaching a flashpoint. Crawford was trying to physically enforce his authority, using his size, strength, and veteran leverage to bully Shakur in the pocket. Shakur, refusing to play the role of the submissive younger brother, dug his feet into the canvas and fought back with raw, spiteful aggression. Listen closely to the audio that leaked alongside the clip. You hear words being exchanged about pace, control, and who was actually controlling the action. You hear Crawford telling Shakur that he's playing safe, moving too much, and refusing to stand and fight. You hear Shakur throwing it right back in Bud's face, telling him that he can't clean hit him, that Bud is getting frustrated because he can't land his power shots on a defensive mastermind. That is the ultimate clash of boxing philosophies. Crawford represents violent, calculated execution, a fighter who believes that real boxing is about breaking your opponent's will and finishing them. Shakur represents the pure art of hit and don't get hit, a fighter who takes deep, almost sadistic pride in making elite world champions miss by millimeters and look silly in front of thousands of people. When those two philosophies collide in a closed gym, with no judges, no crowd, and no belt on the line, only pure, unadulterated pride, things are guaranteed to heat up. The boundary between friendly sparring and a bitter war becomes microscopic. And as both men continue to push their careers into new territories, this viral moment marks a pivotal turning point in how the boxing world views their relationship. The explosion of interest surrounding this viral footage says far more about the current state of boxing than it does about a single training session in a Colorado gym. We live in an era where fans are starving for real, unfiltered authenticity. They are tired of manufactured rivalries on Twitter, staged press conference scuffles, and fighters who avoid taking real risks in the ring. Seeing 2-pound, 4-pound titans engaging in a fiery, high-stakes battle behind closed doors tap directly into that hunger. So, what does this heated moment mean for both Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson moving forward? First, for Shakur Stevenson, this viral footage might actually be the best thing that could have happened for his career narrative. For all of Shakur's brilliant defensive skills and undeniable technical genius, he has faced criticism from a vocal segment of casual boxing fans who label his style as boring or too defensive. Critics often point to fights where Shakur used his footwork to neutralize opponents without stepping on the gas pedal to search for a dramatic knockout. Seeing Shakur stand toe-to-toe with a bigger, meaner, more powerful killer like Terence Crawford, refusing to yield, firing back with vicious combinations, and matching Bud's intimidating trash talk word for word, shows a side of Shakur that casual fans rarely get to see. It proves that beneath that polished, defensive exterior beats the heart of a genuine fighter. When pushed into a corner, Shakur doesn't fold, he bites down on his mouthpiece and throws heat. As Shakur prepares for massive potential superfights down the line, whether against explosive rivals like Gervonta "Tank" Davis, Teofimo Lopez, or stepping up to face physical monsters at 140 pounds, that edge is precisely what he needs. Sparring Crawford at that level of intensity forces Shakur out of his comfort zone. It teaches him how to fight through fire, how to handle getting hit with real power, and how to maintain his composure when an opponent tries to break his spirit. If Shakur can stand his ground against Terence Crawford in a heated gym war, there isn't a lightweight or super lightweight on earth who can intimidate him. Second, for Terence Crawford, this moment reinforces why he remains the ultimate apex predator in the sport. Even in his late 30s, having achieved financial security, Hall of Fame status, and undisputed championship belts, Crawford's competitive drive hasn't diminished by a single percentage point. He doesn't take rounds off, he doesn't give respect away for free. And he doesn't care if you are his little brother or a stranger, if you step across that line into his ring, he is coming to dominate you. That terrifying, unshakable mindset is why Bud Crawford has remained undefeated for so long, and why he continues to search for the biggest, hardest challenges available in combat sports. Finally, we have to address the elephant in the room that every boxing fan is quietly thinking about. Could Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson ever actually fight each other in a real, sanctioned, professional bout? Right now, the weight gap keeps them apart. Crawford has moved up to junior middleweight, 154 pounds, and continues to eye massive fights at upper weight classes, while Shakur operates primarily at lightweight, 135 pounds, with plans to move up to 140. Historically, both men have insisted that their brotherhood runs too deep for them to ever lock horns for real in a pay-per-view main event. But history in combat sports has shown us time and time again that money, legacy, and competitive pride can alter even the strongest bonds. We saw it with marvelous Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns. We saw it with gym partners who eventually had to fight when the stakes grew too large. While a formal fight between Crawford and Stevenson remains unlikely in the immediate future, footage like this gives fans a rare, breathtaking window into what that mythical matchup would actually look like. It would be speed versus power. Pure defensive mastery versus ruthless offensive execution. Student versus master. Whether this viral footage remains an isolated moment of intense training or the first spark of a subtle, unspoken rivalry, one thing is absolute: Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson represent the highest level of boxing mastery on the planet today. They are two generational talents pushing each other to absolute perfection, proving that true iron sharpens iron, and sometimes, in the heat of the gym, that process creates sparks bright enough to illuminate the entire sporting world.